What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 7 edition of the Game Plan. It's going to be a new format. We're going to change things up a bit on today's episode. We're going to go through my rankings. So if you're in the chat, first of all, welcome. Good morning. Thank you for joining on this beautiful Sunday escapade for Week 7. What's up, DB? I see you in the chat there, Harry Snowman. Anyone else in the chat too? If you have a question about a ranking, or if you want to make fun of me for potential, you can throw it in the chat. We'll talk about it. But we're going to go through some of my rankings, and then we're going to do a new segment called This Week in WoRP. It's time to start educating the masses on wins above replacement, because wins over replacement is the best metric when you're talking about getting an advantage on value in your fantasy league. So this week we'll be doing a This Week in WoRP, and then we'll end it with Kiwoom's Call of the Week. It's going to be a great episode, great Week 7 slate for you today. And of course, if you have some lineup questions, drop them in the chat. Folks, let's do it. All right, so let's start at the quarterback position. We're going to go through these ranks 1 through 20. And where I would like to start actually is with Mr. Jaden Daniels. So Jaden Daniels this week takes on the Carolina Panthers at home. This is the 5th easiest matchup for opposing quarterbacks, but coincidentally, the Carolina Panthers haven't given up a ton of rushing opportunities this season. I don't think that's going to matter on a guy who runs a 4.5. He has that crazy speed. I don't think that's really going to matter, especially when you look at the ability for Jaden Daniels to kind of, I don't want to say lull you to sleep, but when you watch his games, it just feels a little easy. I don't want to say easy. That's crazy. He's a rookie. I don't say easy, but it does seem fluid. It doesn't seem forced. It's not chaotic. It's not garbage time. It's pretty commanding, pun intended, I guess, now that he plays with the Commanders. But there's only been 1 week so far this season that Jaden Daniels hasn't scored 20 fantasy points. That was back in week 2. But over the last 2 weeks, he hasn't eclipsed the top 10. But he hasn't really made fantasy managers all that angry because he's still in the top 12. He's still handling business, but it's been now 3 weeks since he's been in the top 5. I think this is his get right week. This is his week where he can really kind of attack. He's been hyper efficient this year. He's second in terms of fantasy points per dropback, given his ability to take off and run. He's 6th in adjusted yards per attempt. So he's throwing the ball downfield, and he's also really accurate when he has a clean pocket. He's really just becoming the total package. So I have him there at 2. Only quarterback ahead of him is, of course, the big dog, Lamar Jackson, who's just having a fantastic year. We got some questions in the chat, and I'll go back and forth, too. If you have any questions about the rankings, we'll do that. If not, we'll just keep it going. But Keyshawn Butte or Pierre Strong? PPR, Butte. If it's not PPR, I guess I'll go Pierre Strong. Goodson, Bucky, or Sermon, Downs, or Worthy? We will get to that. We'll get to it a little bit, but I'll give you. I got Downs over Worthy. Downs is a top 30 play, even with Anthony Richardson. And when we're talking about the running backs there, Rob, I'm going to go with Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon, I got him at running back 24 this week. Drizzy, Drake, May, or Anthony Richardson. I'm going to go Richardson, but it's getting close. How close? Look at those rankings. 14 and 17. It's getting super, super close, but I would still go Richardson just slightly there. Tyrone Tracy or JSN. I'm going to go with JSN this week. I love the Falcons-Seahawks matchup. I got JSN as a top 31 wide receiver, so just outside that wide receiver 2 range. So I'm going to go with JSN. Chase Brown. What do I think of Chase Brown? Well, we'll get to him when we get to the second, the running back rankings there, DB. And Eckler, too, I got you. We got you when we get to the running back rankings. The D rankings, Jags might be a go. The Jags defense fucking stinks, dude. I don't know. I don't know. They freaking stink. Dylan Fink, what's going on, big dog? Different leagues. So we can start one wide receiver, one tight end. It's Bateman, Waddle, Parkinson, Likely. We will go with Parkinson at tight end, and at wide receiver, give me a steaming pile of Jalen Waddle. Worthy or Juju? I'm going Juju. I like Juju this week. You'll see how much I like Juju this week here in a second. We'll move on. We'll keep the trade rolling. So you see these quarterback rankings: Lamar, Jaden, Josh Allen. I'm not getting away. Baker Mayfield. Love the matchup. Love the shoot-up potential on Monday Night Football going against the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens. Patrick Mahomes there at number 9. I mean, that's kind of crazy. How do I point to make it? Ooh, wow. We're living in 2024, people. Look, woo. I like it here. And then, of course, we see some of the good passers, iffy matchups here on the other side here with Cousins and Goff and Darnold. So there we go. Now let's get to the rest of the quarterback rankings. Nothing really sticks out here other than we're just in full-fledged fade of Trevor Lawrence. The Fields Russell thing, I believe it's Russell if you believe in George Pickens, but he's also a freaking menace. So maybe he's just out there causing havoc. I don't know, but I couldn't rank 1, 2 all that high. It's a tough matchup against the Jets, and quite frankly, I would rather it be Fields for fantasy, but maybe it's better to have Russell Wilson, and then maybe the offense will flow a little bit better, operate a little bit more efficiently. I don't know, but I just couldn't rank one of them higher, not knowing exactly how it's going to play out. Let's get to the running backs. Derrick Henry, running back 1 this week, and I'm not even mad about it. I was completely wrong. I thought this guy would be a tight end or touchdown-dependent running back 2. He's just a touchdown monster running back 1. He's already got 9 total touchdowns this season. He's scoring 22.6 fantasy points per game. And this week, taking on the Buccaneers, it's a middle-of-the-road matchup. Vita Vea will always make things difficult, but if there is a player that can break those tackles and cause some havoc, of course, it's the Kang. Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker continues to shoot up my rankings. We'll talk more about Kenneth Walker later in the show. Chuba Hubbard will continue to be a very sought-after running back up until we get Jonathan Brooks back. We saw him practice this week. It doesn't seem like he's going to suit up so far this week. But looking at Chuba Hubbard, another matchup against a decent, not a good defense, but a decent run defense, kind of middle of the road. But his touches, I mean, when you look at Kyron Williams, this is a guy who's 4th in weighted opportunities. He has the 12th highest opportunity share. And we've seen him now get right around 20 carries 3 out of the last 4 weeks. 21 back in week 3, 18, 13, and then 18 again last week. He's running almost 20 routes per game, seeing more than 4 targets per game. He is their lead back. He is their bell cow. And regardless of some of the analytics, and his analytics are actually pretty good. I really look at his analytical profile. Nothing really sticks out as something all that bad here to me. So I think that Chuba Hubbard will continue to stay there. Josh Jacobs has been good, not great, so he stays there at 13. David Montgomery has a real good nose for the end zone, so I have to keep him inside of my top 15. Ramondre Stevens is active, so we'll put him right back there in the top 20. And now with the news that Travis Etienne will be out, Tank Dell, number 19 in my rankings. He shot all the way up. I do think he is a top 20 play. So, yes, I'm not good, but you can be good knowing this here. If you are going to go take Busy, he's a top 20 play for me. So I got with Etienne out, he is a top 20 play. Sits there right there at 19. We got some questions coming in, so let's get to it. Marv, BTJ, Pop Douglas, or Jerry Jeudy. Give me Marvin Harrison and give me Brian Thomas ever so slightly, but I do have Pop Douglas as a top 24 play. You'll see that when we get to the wide receivers. But in terms of these two guys, O'Connor, let's go the 2 rooks. I'm going rookie here. Sleeping on Kareem, am I? Kareem Hunt, big Kareem Hunt guy. I'm curious, what do you think he's going to finish this week? I think he's okay play. Speaking of which, let's keep it going. There he is right there at 23. So I do think he's a startable play. A running back 2, a really strong running back 2, right in that Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Kareem Hunt range. So at 23, I'm not nervous about playing him at all. But let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about Kareem Hunt, right? Because 2 weeks ago, my man, he was about to be the co-host of the game plan, right? I mean, he wasn't really doing a whole lot. He was just kind of keeping healthy. And now here he is as the Chiefs running back 1. In the 2 games in which he's really been active and played, it's almost as if it's almost as if he didn't miss a beat. Week 1, the production wasn't really there. He only scored 10.5 fantasy points, but a 47% snap share. He's under 50%. He still got over 20 touches in that game, despite the low snap share. In the second game not last week, but week 5 against the Saints in that primetime game, we saw the snap share jump up nearly 20%. We saw the opportunities skyrocket. He had 35 total opportunities, 27 carries, 1 target, so 28 opportunities. He ran 8 routes, so he was out there on the field running routes still too. 117 total yards and that touchdown. He was running back 5. So I'm with you there on the Kareem Hunt. I'm not opposed to starting Kareem Hunt. This matchup is really just middle of the road. It doesn't scare me all that much, so I don't mind him as a play. He's as I have him at 23. He's not a bona fide running back 1 yet, but running back 2, he's there. Dalton Kincaid or Tucker Kraft. Let's refer to the rankings here. I still got Tucker Kraft ahead of Kincaid by 4 spots. Tucker Kraft he's in a bet. I don't know. They're kind of the same in terms of how we separate them. Good athlete, good offense, good quarterback, boom bust. Okay, we saw the 2 touchdown upside of Tucker Kraft a couple weeks ago, but then he absolutely dudded last week. And Dalton Kincaid's coming off his best game, but his best game was a mediocre game. So I don't love it. I don't love the matchup for the Bills this week per se. So I'm going to go with Kraft there. Give me Tucker Kraft. Moss, Hill, Goodson, or Deonest. I'm assuming that's Zach Moss. I'm assuming, is that Tyreek Hill? You got to go Tyreek. I'm going Tyreek there. I'm definitely going Tyreek. Tyler Goodson, Dearness, they're okay as flex plays. I'm not really in on Zach Moss. I got him right there at running back 28. Not in love with him this week, but I'm going to go Tyreek Hill, and I might want to stick around to the end because the Kiwoom call might be based around him. All right, here's my wide receivers, and here's how it pans out. And the guy I'd like to highlight here in the top 5 is Mr. Chris Godwin. Godwin has been fantastic this season. Godwin has been an elite fantasy wide receiver. He's wide receiver 3 on a points per game basis. He has 5 touchdowns, 500 receiving yards in just 6 games played, and he has a top 10 opposing matchup for wide receivers. The Ravens are the 9th most advantageous matchup for wide receivers, and he's still getting done at age 28. His yards per route run, top 12 in the NFL. His format adjusted yards per route run is 11th in the NFL. His yards per team pass attempt is 5th in the NFL. So the analytics are supporting the volume. And then, of course, you see 53 targets, top 7. He's playing great out of the slot in this Liam Cohen offense. Baker Mayfield's number 1 guy. It's just hard for you to not be all in on. It's just hard. It's hard for him to not be a top guy right now, especially with the matchup, the advantageous matchup. I got him right there at 4. Stephon Diggs is sitting there at 5. As long as Nico Collins is out, I think Diggs is an absolute beast. And I'm not fading Tyreek. There you go. You see Tyreek Hill sitting at number 10. Tyreek this week, and I'm going to get more into Tyreek Hill later on. Okay? I'm going to get in more. But after the bye, the juices are flowing. He's feeling good. Tua Tagovailoa is a week away. I think this is a good week for him. So if you have Tyreek Hill, you're going back to, don't be afraid. You got to play your guy. Mike Evans, I have him at 15, but he's also a player that You could convince me to play a DK, a Debo Samuel, one of these guys after him because of the issue with the injury. He was taken off the injury report altogether, but you don't exactly know. I don't exactly know the injury concern is there. I guess I could say to make it easy there. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Where did I leave off? Boom, 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 boom. Franz. Where we go? Here we go. Maybe I should start starring these things. J-Tube need a lot of help in one league. Mason or Demario Douglas. Another week, Marv or McBride. Should I drop Rico Dowdle for May? My QB is Gino. If I do Gino or May, there's a lot, Pat, going down here. I'm going to keep Gino. I'm not going to pick May up here to drop Dowdle. I will go Pop Douglas, and if this is PPR, I'll go Pop Douglas over Mason. If it's not, you're definitely going to play Mason. I got Mason at 27 this week. You'll see you saw that in the last graphic. I with the injury concerns, I'm just not exactly excited about it. You don't want him to leave early with that AC joint injury, or if he's a late scratch like we saw from James Cook or Christian McCaffrey in week 1. As far as Marv or McBride, give me McBride, especially if there's a tight end premium. Go McBride. Which two am I starting of Mari Whittington and Marv? I'm going to go Mari and Marv there. I'm going to go Mari and Marv because Whittington's dealing with his own issue as well. Pop Douglas, Tyreek, or Tank Dell. I'm going to go Tyreek Hill, top 10 play for me. Is Walker going to play today? Well, he's sick, so it's completely, you're going to have to follow. We don't know. He hit the injury report on Friday due to an illness. We don't love when that happens. So you just got to follow it. I believe he plays. Usually illnesses don't keep the guys out of the game, but you don't know. You just don't know off rip. Pop Douglas, we went through the okay. We got Brandon Ayuk or Jordan Mason. Brandon Ayuk, I think I'm going to go just slightly on there at 23, wide receiver 23. So I'm going to go with Ayuk there. Garrett Wilson or Marvin Harrison Jr. I got Marv higher. So let's go with Marvin Harrison Jr. Marv's going to be ranked higher than Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson right now, after the dust has settled, he's wide receiver 26. Devontae's there. What do you want me to do? Devontae's there, and they love each other. They love each other. So this is the all right, here we go. Let's dial it in. Okay, so now we're running wide receivers 21 to 40. Xavier Worthy, he's been out. He's not really ranked high in a lot of consensus ranks. The reason why I keep him there, he has the big playability. He has the one touchdown, 70-yard touchdown type upside, and that just needs to be ranked appropriately. It just needs to be valued because there is that boom bust potential. There is that upside for him. But Wan'Dale Robinson, someone that I want to talk about and someone that I'm keeping an eye on today now that the freak Malik Neighbors will be back on the field. But this has been a really good matchup for opposing wide receivers, the Philadelphia Eagles. He's projected to line up against Cooper DeJean, rookie out of the slot. And when he was getting the volume, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson was good. And in absence, he's been double digits almost every single week this year, including the ones with Malik on the field. So I'm curious to see how that is affected. I put him pretty conservatively ranked at 37. But if he does have another good game, another 12, 15 fantasy points, I think he's going to settle in that where Josh Downs is in that 28 to 29 range, someone that you can depend upon regardless of how things go. So that's kind of where I'm going to have that ranked and where I think I'm going to sit on that too. Going forward, Jameson Williams, I have him as top 35 play. Again, he's got that boom bust potential. We love what we saw last week in Dallas. Hopefully he can repeat it. And then I will say here, these rankings of Jordan Addison and Jalen Waddle, these are just, I'll be quite frank with you. I'll be honest. I'm not ashamed of my process. They're just talent ranks. The situation, the numbers haven't really translated great for fantasy. I'm just not comfortable fading receivers that good past this point. Sure, I'll put a guy like Demario Douglas, who's hot right now in a good matchup ahead of him. Sure, I'll put a guy like Darnell Mooney, who has that big time potential in that big shootout game. Sure, I'll put him ahead of those guys. But after that, I mean, I really I struggled taking him out of the conversation altogether because they're just so good. They're good players. And at the end of the day, you want good players on your fantasy lineup. That's how you win, right? That is how you win. Flex 2, start 1. Tyreek Hill, James Conner, and Evan Ingram. So if Flex 2, sit 1. Okay. So you play 2. Who are you sitting? I'm going to sit Ingram here. We got Tyreek as a top 10 receiver, so you're definitely playing him. I like James Conner. Not a great matchup, but does have some sneaky shootout potential on Monday night. So I have him as a top 15 running back. So let's sit Evan Ingram against the Patriots. Christian Kirk, Nick Chubb, Juju Smith-Schuster, Romeo Dubes, start 1.5 point PPR. I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster, but I've elevated Nick Chubb quite a bit. He's my running back 26 this week. He started at running back 31. It feels to me like they just love this guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a bunch of touches. All right, let me go back to the process. Let me go back real quick to the drawing board because this is a Q&A for you guys. This is a chance we're game planning to get these lineups set and dialed in. We got to get it dialed in. Cincinnati's matchup's been kind of middle of the road. I'm going to go Juju. The matchup, if the matchup was just a little juicier, I think I might go Chubb. I'm going to go Juju Smith-Schuster here. Oh, I'm the redraft guy, but he's going to hit me with the dynasty question. I appreciate it, friends. I appreciate the confidence in my versatility. Would I trade Devontae Adams and a second for Brandon Ayuk if you're contending? No, I wouldn't. If you're contending, no. If this year doesn't look like a championship year, yeah, I would take this. I would take the return. I think it's pretty good, for sure. Nick Chubb or Tyler Algier? Sorry, I take a sip of my coffee. It's early. Nick Chubb or Tyler Algier? Let's go with Nick Chubb. Let's go, Nick Chubb. Soggy damn. I'm going to call it Soggy Doggy. I'm going to call you Soggy Doggy. Soggy Danger One. Yeah, let's go with Nicholas Chubb. Which would I stash? Emmanuel Wilson, Vidal, Sassoon, or Blake Corum? Vidal. We saw his ability. He didn't get the volume last week, but we saw the playmaking ability. We got to go with my man, Kimani Vidal. T-Rock in the house. What up, T? Mooney, J-Mo, Marv, or Bigsby. Pick one. Woo. Bigsby's probably ranked the highest for me. I'm going to go Bigsby. It's going to sound crazy, but let me go Bigsby, Marv, Mooney, J-Mo. That's what I have it. Worthy is a cheat code. Man, I talked about this earlier in one of the shows this week that, man, if I just wish we could have got a couple games with Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce with Pat Mahomes. The offense that they were envisioning was going to be so electric, and they just never were able to use it because they never had Hollywood Brown healthy. Rashee Rice was hurt early in the season. It just I wish. Flex 2 of them. So we're sitting 1. You're going to sit Shakir here. Play Njoku, play Ayuk. Going to sit Shakir. Are we firing up Nick Chubb on anytime TD narrative for his first week back? I love this, DB. I love this. I think that Nick Chubb anytime touchdown is pretty good. I think it's a good idea because I don't think he needs 25 touches to score a touchdown. If their approach with Chubb is going to be that 15 to 18 touch range, he can score. And now let's go look at the odds there. I want to give everyone a good understanding because I'm going to put some shillings down. DB, this was a great call. This is a decent divisional matchup. I don't think that this is a game that you're totally freaking out about. It's not like a horrible matchup. Nick Chubb, anytime touchdown, plus 140. So you don't get a lot of juice. Seems like a lot. I would also sprinkle some shillings on first TD score. DraftKings has the first TD score at plus 750. So do a little on the 140, a little less on the 750 and hope to hit big. One of the most loved characters. It's right. That's right. 100%. He is. They love him. They absolutely love him. Ayuk, JSN, Pickens, Mooney, Worthy, or Downs. Got to start 4. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're sitting 2 of them. It's a pretty damn good wide receiver room. Let's see here. I'm probably going to sit downs. I'm going to sit downs with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. And then I think I'm going to sit Worthy. I like Worthy. You see him right there on the screen. He's a top 40 play. But I got JSN ranked higher. You can see that. I got Mooney ranked higher. I got Pickens ranked higher. And then Ayuk ranked higher. So we're just going to convert to the rankings here. And the only reason why I'm playing Darnell Mooney over Downs, even though I have Downs higher in the rankings, is I like that matchup better. I like the matchup better. So that works for Darnell Mooney and for JSN. So I'm going to sit Josh Downs. JSN or Christian Kirk. JSN at 31. Christian Kirk is below that. I got Christian Kirk this week at 44. So I'm going to go with JSN. Bigsby. Oh, what's up, Robo? Chris, Bigsby, JSN, or Mooney. Pick one. Give me Tank Bigsby. Now let's keep going. We got one last part of the graphics, one last position to speak about. It is the tight end position. And as you see here, he's been anointed. He is there. It's time. Brock Bowers, tight end 1 this week. Tight end 1 in Dynasty. Could potentially be tight end 1 this year in fantasy football. It's been a great start for the rookie, and the clear for he's just cleared for takeoff without Devontae Adams. Someone I will talk about real quick here, Laporta. Sam Laporta is wow. I mean, wow. Sam Laporta being at 10 is something I did not think I'd do often this year. And I think I'm higher on him than consensus. Last week, it took a trick play to get him a 50-something yard touchdown. That was his only reception. Yeah, DB, it's generous. Yeah, you're right. It's generous. It's betting on the talent. It is. But I also want to talk about Dalton Kincaid because Dalton Kincaid's been a big disappointment. Last week was his best game or his second best game in 2025, getting ahead of myself, 26, 7 targets, 6 catches, 51 receiving yards, 11.1 fantasy points. This week, though, not a great matchup. Tennessee Titans. It's not a great matchup. So I had to keep him outside of the top 10. We have a super chat. Thank you, Vic. Thank you very much for the super chat. Of course, if you leave your super chats, you will jump the line. You will springboard like Kimani Vidal to the front of the line. Flex, Brian Thomas, or James Conner, non-PPR. I'm going to go James Conner here. I'm going to go with the Final Fizz. I'm going to go Monday Night Football. I'm going to go James Conner here in a grind-em-out game. Conner, believe it or not, has been a low-key hero for fantasy football. James Conner has been a low-key dog. And this week, the matchup's not great against the Chargers, but the volume is king at this position, and the volume is definitely there for James Conner. And if it wasn't for last week, the 2 weeks before that, over 100 total yards, did score in week 4. He's their lead back. Trey Benson's a little banged up. I have no Amari DiMercato. This is definitely the James Conner show in a game that, whether it be grind him out or not, I really believe that this is a good matchup in terms of the volume that he will see. There is a slight wrinkle or thin ice. What do you call it? There's a saying, but I don't think you could say it anymore. But there's an issue with the Charger defense. They actually give up a lot of receiving work to opposing running backs. And last week we saw James Conner run the only 4 route. No, he had 5 targets, 4 receptions. It was his best receiving game. So they're ramping him up in that department. I like James Conner this week. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Amari Cooper or D-Hop at flex. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper for sure. In his first game there, I don't care. I'm not worried about it. In relativity to D-Hop. D-Hop, Mason Rudolph, not a QB upgrade. I'm sorry. Will Levis has been trash, but we've seen Mason Rudolph be trash for a lot longer than we've seen Will Levis be trash. It's just trash on trash on trash. It is a straight dump over there. It is an actual Tennessee Titan dump at quarterback. Tank Dizzy or BTJ. Give me Tank Dell in potentially one of the shootouts of the week. The Green Bay Packers and Houston Texans game has a high over-under. It's one of those games where you maybe shy away in the past because of Lambeau, but it's going to be 70 degrees. It's going to be gorgeous out there in Wisconsin, so we're very excited for that game. And as you can see here, tight end, there's not a whole lot to dive into. It's kind of the usual characters here. Zach Ertz, Kobe Parkinson, Pat Frymouth, those are the guys you pick up in a pinch. I will say I am a little curious to see if Russell Wilson is the quarterback in Pittsburgh. What does that look like for Pat Frymouth? Does that help him out? That's something I'm excited to kind of see. All right, so as I said, we'll keep answering the questions in the chat. That's what we're here for. We're here to game plan, get those lineups set, get them ready to rock and roll. And then at 12 Eastern Standard Time, head back over to the South Harmon FF YouTube channel for Start or Shit. Eric Vanek, T-Rock, they're going to be bringing it down, breaking down those lineups to get you ready to go for Week 7. And if you want to get the WoRP tool, and I think you might after this next segment, head over to southharmonff.com. Get that WoRP tool today. So this segment, new segment this week in WoRP, I got a few pieces of conversation, topics, if you will, regarding players with their WoRP, where they sit in terms of their replacement level as a player. And WoRP, if you're unfamiliar, is wins over replacement player. It is a metric that was developed by our guy Coop that shows that really quantifies value for a given player at their position. So you can see it relative to the position, other positions. If you play Dynasty, which I know a lot of you guys do, it's a great tool to use in terms of looking to see how certain positions have finished and what that value has meant for Dynasty over a rolling 3-year period. So that's all the good stuff. That's the overview of WoRP here. But the first player that I need to talk about WoRP after kind of doing some research, Kenneth Walker III. Kenneth Walker III has been so good for fantasy football. He's got a 0.829 WoRP. He is the 10th most valuable player in fantasy football. And the reason really is his work in the passing game. We all can agree that Kenneth Walker is one of the best runners in the NFL. I mean, I don't think that's really gets argued much. His downside, the reason why we weren't taking him in honestly the first or second round of some of these drafts, obviously the new situation, but also we wouldn't expect him to catch the ball. We didn't think that he'd be a runner. We didn't think that he'd be just a runner. No, the new coaching regime had a different way about it. And Ryan Grubbs, we should have maybe saw this coming after how they used Dylan Johnson at Washington last year. But we're not only seeing Kenneth Walker do what he do on the ground, he's run the 5th most routes amongst qualified running backs. He has the 5th highest target share amongst running backs with 14.5. Since returning from injury in week 4, 4 receptions, 7 receptions, 8 receptions. Kenneth Walker is amazing in this role on this offense. And now you have to start looking to acquire him before people catch up, before your league mates realize what this new role is going to mean for Kenneth Walker. And a stat I like to look at running backs is fantasy points versus expected fantasy points, because typically that's where you'll see the touchdown kind of weigh it one way or another. Nope, not here. Ain't happening here. Kenneth Walker, 5 touchdowns, but he's still expected to score 19.3 fantasy points a game. He's still looking amazing no matter how you dice it up. And when you have the opportunity to buy, I think that Kenneth Walker is sitting in a position where if you have your Breece Hall, you have your Bijan Robinson, yes, they looked great last week. You could take them tier down to Kenneth Walker and land yourself a receiver that could be a starting receiver on your lineup every single week. Or if you have a player like a Tony Pollard or someone that's kind of out kicking their coverage right now, a little bit like a DeAndre Swift, use that to buy in to Kenneth Walker, because it looks like Kenneth Walker is just a beast in fantasy football, and the way he's being used will translate over the course of the season. It's looking good for Kenneth Walker. Vic, another super chat. You are the best. Of course, I'm going to answer your questions. Leave a super chat and you will jump the line. PPR start 2. Connor, Mason, Kareem. I'm going to go Connor and I'm going to go Kareem. I'm going to go Connor and Kareem. And I will give you this Also, you paid for the super chat, so I'm going to give you a little extensive, a little behind the scenes of the mind, how I'd work it here. Because all of these guys do not play until 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so I don't know where you're at, but they're in that second slate. If there's a report that Mason is looking fantastic, Mason doesn't appear to be hindered at all by that injury. They're going to give him all. If they're just glowing reports, I would sneak Mason in over Kareem Hunt, but I don't see that happening. So I would imagine that when we're looking at the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to be playing Connor. We're going to be playing Kareem Hunt in that game because it seems like Kareem Hunt is the lead back until Isaiah Pacheco comes back, which is absolutely banana land. So go Connor, go Mason. Go Connor, go Kareem Hunt, but monitor Mason. You got to at least sniff. He's been that good. You got to give him the benefit of doubt. If there's great reports, doubt there's going to be him. So we're going to go with Hunt. We're going to go with Connor. But make sure you come back for the Starter Shit Show at noon. See what Eric and T-Rock have to say about it too. Let's move on to the next point. The next player that I really wanted to talk about when you look at his WoRP, when his wins over replacement, Jordan Love, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Now, Jordan Love missed some games early on, but he's played in the 4. He's played over the last 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, he's finished QB2, QB14, QB3. And you go, how's that translate? What does that mean for value? As of right now, looking at his WoRP, Jordan Love is a top 20 player overall. And this is one QB. This is one QB seasonal formats. This isn't Superflex. He's going to be more in terms of the overall list than that. But he's QB2. And that transcends format. He's the second most valuable quarterback, only behind Lamar Jackson. And it's because of quite frankly, it's the situation, it's the offense, and it's the fact that his head coach, Matt LaFleur, now is relying on him to facilitate the entire offense. It's not as run-centric as it was last year. They're putting the ball in his hands to win the game. And when you pop the hood, look at the analytical profile, it does support a quarterback that will continue produce given the weapons, given the system that he has. He missed a couple games. He has 12 passing touchdowns. That's second in the NFL. They're keeping him upright. He has one of the best protection rates in the NFL. And when you look at some of the deep ball attempts, the red zone attempts, those are both inside the top 15. They're throwing the ball inside pay dirt. They're throwing the ball inside the red zone, inside the money areas, and they're throwing the ball deep when they're not. They're allowing him to chuck the rock. And for me, in my seasonal brethren, this is the time to pounce on Jordan Love. Jordan Love is a player that you could get into relatively affordably. In my experience, and you look at most trade indicators, they would suggest the same. And the best way to do it is probably be a tier down, to be quite frank. If you have a Jalen Hurts, you could tier down to Jordan Love and get your secondary piece. If you have a Kyler Murray, you could probably swap that straight up, given the ability to run for Kyler Murray. Jordan Love, though, he's been fantastic. Jordan Love has been so good, and it looks as if he will it will remain. It will continue to be there for the Packers and for us in fantasy football. Ryan C. traded AR for him. Wait, let me read this again. Paid up and traded Anthony Richardson for Jordan Love yes, let's go. Let's go. Use that WoRP, baby. Ryan, head over to SouthHarmonFF.com. Get that WoRP tool. Yes, this is how the trades you can make, and you can pony up for players, but truthfully, you're just pulling one over on your league mates. The next player that I needed to talk about is a tight end that's been relatively valuable, and I'll talk about why I said relatively valuable, but Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet right now is the 4th tight end in fantasy on a points per game basis. He's tight end 3 overall. That'll fall, obviously, because he's on his bye week, and it's really just been hyper efficient. 29 targets. He's caught 26 of them for almost 300 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. 2 of them came in London last week. And it's really just being a part of this offense. But the analytics are there too. I mean, yards per target, 4th, 5th in yards per route run, 4th in fantasy points per game, as I mentioned. 9th in yards after catch. He's a good yak guy, and he's getting the ball downfield. He's 4th in deep targets. He's been good. He's been a good player, and it sticks out when you look at the tight ends WoRP. He's a top 40 player overall at 38. He's tight end 3. He's the third most valuable tight end in fantasy football right now. When you use WoRP, he's got that. He's right over the threshold of 5, so 0.572, which is good. But why I said relatively is actually the last point I'm going to bring up in this week of WoRP segment is the tight ends in general. Tight ends have sucked. They're not valuable. Right now, Brock Bowers, who's been dynamic. Brock Bowers has been fantastic. Brock Bowers is 19th in 1 QB leagues. 1 QB leagues. 19th most valuable player. James Cole Kmet, like I just mentioned, 38. And those are the top 3. You have only 3 tight ends in the top 40. It's just not been a really relatively valuable position. I think this is actually a spot if you play in a casual league, you play with coworkers or family members, the people that aren't tuning into the game plan at 9 a.m. These are the leagues where you can just keep pushing tight end down, just keep kicking the can. Keep kicking the can. You have Travis Kelce, trade him for Cole Kmet. Trade Cole Kmet for there isn't really a huge list of valuable tight ends. I mean, Pat Frymuth, who dudded last week, is still 7th, but he's 84th overall. Sam Laporta, who was tight end 1 last year, is the 88th most valuable player right now in fantasy football at tight end 9. It's just a crapshoot. These players, they're not making differences. They're not making a big difference. So now's the time to start adjusting some of these type of moves here. I got a couple more questions, and then we're gonna do the Kiwoom call of the week, and then I'm gonna set y'all free to go watch the New England Patriots beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. At least I hope. Come on, Drake Bay. Full PPR, Jaden Reed or Garrett Wilson. Give me Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed here in a matchup again. I like the matchup. They can keep him away from Derek Stingley, put him in the slot, move him around. They can hide him. I have him as a top 11 play. He's my wide receiver 11. So let's go with Reed. Ryan C. That tight end line is dumpy this year. It's shit. It is. It's shit. It is absolute shite. All right, let's get out of here with this. The Kiwoom call of the week. I teased it earlier, but I'm going to drop it now. Tyreek Hill goes for 8 catches, 120 yards, and scores a touchdown. He goes bonkers against the Indianapolis Colts. Coming out of the bye week, they're going to scheme him some deep plays. He's juiced up. He's ready for Tua Tagovailoa to be back next week. And we've seen a ramp up in volume over the last 3 weeks. 5, 7, and 9 targets in week 5. He caught 6 of them for only 69 yards. But the key here, 76 air yards. 76 air yards. So they weren't chucking it deep. They were being a little bit more efficient. The week before, though, week 4, 129, they took some deep shots against Tennessee. They just weren't able to convert. I think this week we see a converging of the volume and the deep targets. The Indianapolis Colts they run zone coverage about 85% of the time, and that's going to hurt his ability to make big plays, but it's going to help his ability to make plays overall. So if those 9 targets are there, catching 8 of them will be on the table because he'll find the soft spots in the zone, and given his abilities, given his week of rest, taking one of the house is on the table, and that's why I have him as a top 10 play, and that is why my Kiwoom call of the week, Tyreek Hill, 8 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. That's it. That's it. Lock it in. Lock it up. That was the episode, week 7 of the game plan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, tapping in. Go enjoy the London game that is kicked off. It's underway now. And like I said, come back to the South Harmon Fantasy Football YouTube channel for Start or Shit with our guys, T-Rock and Eric Vanek at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love you. Thank you for tapping in. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like, at Matty Kiwoom. And if you were interested in the WoRP Tool, which I just cannot stress enough how valuable the WoRP Tool is for success in fantasy football, head over to southharmonff.com. Get that WoRP Tool. And if you want to just become part of the shit show, be part of South Harmon, join the Patreon, patreon.com/South Harmon. You can get in the Discord. You can get in different tiers at just $5. I'll get you in the door. You get you access to all the rankings, get you access to everything, a bunch of the good stuff that we supply in different tiers. And then you can go up from there if you like what you see. But guys, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tapping in. Smash that like button. Leave a comment. I'll keep coming back to the video for any start-sit questions you may have. I got a family day today, so I won't be in front of the screen, but I can make sure I answer those questions for you because we do all this for you guys, all the people out there. So thank you guys, DB, T-Rock, Ryan C, Vic, JT. I'm not good. You are good. You showed up here again. Vic, thank you for the super chats. Cooper, thank you guys for tuning in, tapping in. Just, all I could say, keep game planning, my friends. And I will see you next week for week 8. Peace.